Okay, so welcome back. Lesson 18, part 3, dividing fractions by fractions. So now that we're feeling more comfortable with dividing fractions by fractions, we are going to teach you a shortcut. So when we're looking at dividing fractions by fractions that have different denominators, there's a shortcut, and it's called flipping the second fraction upside down and multiplying. Okay, that's not the real term, but that's what we do. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here, because I'm going to show you why this works, all right, in a couple different ways, is I'm going to multiply by the opposite denominator. Okay, so I have 3 times 5, because whatever I do at the bottom, I do the top, right? And then I'm going to divide and go 4 times 2 and 4 times 5. Okay? And what's happening here, remember we have the same denominators. So we already know that it works if we just drop those. And divide it by 4 times 2. Okay, so what's happening here now is I have 3 times 5, and because it's division, I can write it as a fraction. And now if I was going to separate these, okay, and I want you to have a look at this equation and that equation. Okay, what's the same and what's different? Well, 3/4 is the same. We're multiplying now, so that's different. And we're taking the reciprocal fraction, so it's 5/2 instead of 2/5. All right, so I want to show how this works. All right, so I'm going to get you to work through this one and this problem separately, and then come back. Okay, so if I have 5/8, right, I'm going to multiply by the opposite denominator. So I have 5/8, I'm going to multiply by 7, I'm going to multiply by 7, and then I'm going to divide here, and I have multiplying by the opposite denominator, okay? And now I have like the same denominator, so I can just work with the numerators now. And that is 8 times 3, okay? And I'm going to take this down here, and I'm going to say 5 times 7 divided by 8 times 3, and what that equals is 35, and this is 24. And that's going to be 1 and 11/24. Okay, now here we've flipped the second fraction and we're multiplying. So this would be 35, right? That's 35, this is 24. Wow, we've already jumped to this step. And now we have 1 and 11/24. Okay, so we ended up with the same answer there. Okay, so if I have 3.5 divided by half, does it have the same answer as 3 times its reciprocal? So this is its reciprocal, right? So I just left the 1 off because 2/1, anything over 1 is just 2, because, or the number, the numerator, because you're dividing. Okay, so this is obviously 6. Okay, if I'm going to write this out, I go 3 times 2 divided by 1. Okay, we've already learned this. And so 3 times 2 is 6 divided by 1. Okay, and if I wanted to draw it out, if I had 3 holes and I'm going to cut them into halves, how many halves do I have? And this is 6 halves. Okay, so this is the formula. Okay, so formulas come about when people realize that if I do this over and over again with any number, that it works. Okay, so this is a generalization that someone's made that's come into a rule. So if I have AB divided by CD, that equals to the same as AB, it's the same, times the reciprocal, so CD. Okay, so if I have 3/4 divided by a half, okay, we multiply both terms by the same number, and it doesn't change anything. So this is me showing you a different way that shows why the reciprocal works. Okay, so I am going to, if I multiply this fraction by the same thing I multiply this fraction by, it's going to create a equivalent fraction, right? So I am going to multiply by the reciprocal of 2/5 and the reciprocal here of that same. So what happens is I have 3/4 times 5/2, and that's going to be divided by 10. Okay, actually I'm going to do the answer here. Okay, and this multiplied together is 15, and this multiplied together, the denominators, is 8, and 10 over 10 is 1. So anything divided by 1 is going to remain the same, right? So now I can just get rid of that guy, and 8, it goes into 15 once, and I have 7/8 left. Ooh, that doesn't work. Okay, 7/8 left. So this is called taking the reciprocal right here. All right, so again, I have 4/3 divided by 1/2. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to flip that reciprocal, or I'm going to show you a different way. Okay, I'm going to get you to show me 2 ways. So try to do this in 2 separate ways. Okay, multiply both terms by the opposite denominator for 1, and then invert and multiply. So pause the video. So I am going to multiply by 2 here. I am going to multiply by 2 here. I'm going to divide, and over here I'm going to multiply by 3, and I'm going to multiply by 3. Okay, and then I have like denominators, so I have 4 times 2 is 8, divided by 3, which is, right, because I'm dealing with these, I've skipped a step here, so if you need that step, it's 4 times 2 divided by 3 times 1. Okay, now 3 goes into 6 twice, and I have 2/3. Okay, so if I'm just going to invert here, I have 4/3 times 2 over 1. Okay, so this would be 8, and this is going to be 3, and that would be 2 and 2/3. Okay, so again, I get both answers are exactly the same, but one way is way easier than the other. Clearly, this way is way easier, so just take the reciprocal, okay? It's obviously much easier. All right, make sure you finish off your work and come to the help session if you need help.